I'm Joe Budd from San Gervasi. This is the Rorschach, Georgia update from the 12th of February, 2026. Quick summary of what's going down in Georgia. Thursday the 5th, Georgian authorities froze the bank accounts of at least 12 pro-European protesters to collect unpaid fines for blocking roads during demonstrations throughout last year. Each protester owes approximately $1,800 plus additional late fees. Several of those say they received no prior notice of these fines before the banks froze their accounts. Others say they currently have active court appeals, which legally requires the state to pause collection. All of them agree that this is just another case of the ruling party using financial pressure to discourage further protests. Last week, we reported that the ruling party announced its plan to merge Tbilisi State University and the Georgian Technical University, two biggest public universities, which are over a century old. The plan immediately caused a backlash from students and professors. After weeks of protests, Prime Minister Kobakhidze met with university representatives on Monday the 9th and announced that the government will keep both universities separate and independent. However, here's the catch. Technical University will now focus strictly on engineering and sciences. The school will stop taking new students for any non-technical degrees starting in the coming academic year. Kobakhidze says the university will phase out its current humanities and arts program over the next 2 years. Friday the 6th, Irakli Rukhadze, one of the richest businessmen in Georgia and former button polisher for Badri Patrikatsishvili, announced that he sold IMEDI TV, the most popular and well-funded channel in Georgia and the main source of state propaganda. Rukhadze says he only bought the station in 2018 to support the country's stability and keep the former ruling party from returning to power. Since he feels those risks have finally decreased, he says owning a TV station no longer fits his business goals. Documents show the company sold for a symbolic price of 1,000 lari, under $400. A company called Prime Media Global bought half the shares. Its owners are closely associated with the ruling party. Second half will go to the station's current general director and her 4 deputies. Next up, on Tuesday the 10th, U.S. Congressman Ro Khanna revealed the names of 6 men previously redacted in the Jeffrey Epstein files, including a Georgian guy named Zurab Mikeladze. Khanna shared these identities during a floor speech after he spent 2 hours at the Department of Justice reviewing unredacted documents. Khanna says he believes the government is still covering up thousands of other names, which they of course are, while the files link Mikeladze to the disgraced financier. The report says it is not yet clear who he is or how he knew Epstein. On Wednesday the 11th, Tbilisi mayor and former AC Milan star Kaladze gave an interview to the Italian outlet La Gazzetta dello Sport. He shared a story about the 2008 war between Georgia and Russia. Kaladze says he personally went to Silvio Berlusconi during the conflict because he knew the Italian leader had a close friendship with Vladimir Putin. He says he asked Berlusconi to do something to help stop the war. Kaladze says Berlusconi called the Russian leader right in front of him to discuss. He says the move led to a peace agreement very quickly. Kaladze says he doesn't just see Berlusconi as a politician or a businessman, but as a great man who helped Georgia in a dark time. Strange story. Ask any Italian you know about Berlusconi. Also on Friday, the European Union delegation in Georgia announced the winners of the 2025 EU Prize for Journalism. The online outlet Publica dominated the event by winning 3 out of the 7 main categories. Their team took home prizes for Best Broadcast Story, Best Blog Post, and Best Documentary Photo. Radio Free Europe won for the Best Article of the Year, while Studio Monitor took the prize for Best Investigative Work. Speaking of the EU, on Monday the 9th, Radio Free Europe reported that the EU might include Georgia's Kulevi port in a new package of sanctions against Russia. The European Commission says the port helps Russia bypass sanctions against its shadow fleet. The news follows reports that a sanctioned ship recently dropped 32,000 tons of fuel at the port. Prime Minister Kobakhidze says he's ready to provide the EU with full details and explanations, adding that the port follows all the rules and violates no policies. At the same time, the Maritime Transport Agency says they check every ship and have found no violations. In related news, on Wednesday the 11th, the European Union approved a decision to suspend visa-free travel for holders of Georgian diplomatic and service passports. This move specifically targets high-ranking officials, including Prime Minister, members of Parliament, and their spouses. Even though Hungary and Slovakia, the Kremlin's representatives in the EU, opposed the measure, The decision stands and takes effect in early March. EU says the move is due to the ruling party's refusal to follow democratic recommendations and roll back controversial laws. Since these passports belong to the country's top leadership and state employees, the new rules mean the government elite will now need to apply for visas to enter the EU. On Sunday the 9th, Georgian Dream, or Kotzebue President Misha Kavalashvili, said he met with the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Milan at the opening of the Winter Olympic Games. Kavalashvili says both wanted a reset in relations between Georgia and the U.S. Kavalashvili also told the state propaganda channel TV IMEDI that Vance and Rubio say the Biden administration caused the current poor state of relations between the two countries. Whether what Kavalashvili says is true, the fact is that this short informal meeting was the first high-level contact the ruling party has had at all with the Trump administration. On Thursday the 5th, workers at the Azoty chemical plant in Rustavi in eastern Georgia ended their strike after reaching a deal with the company. Bachana Kapanadze, one of the strike leaders, says the two sides agreed on terms after more than a week of demonstrations. The company will increase monthly salaries by 200 lari, which is about $75, immediately, and add another 125 lari, $50, every February for the next 5 years. Management also agreed to pay the workers for the time they were on strike and stop all court cases against them. The workers also formed a new labor union and a special committee to solve future workplace issues. And the takeaway is, strikes work. In culture, on Thursday the 6th, Batumi Drama Theater canceled the premiere of a play called Dark Web just 2 days before the opening night. Theater administration says they found out the director, Gega Gagnidze, planned to perform what they called a subjective political act on the stage against the ruling party. They say that politics goes beyond the framework of art and they want a space free from political influence. Ugh. This decision caused an immediate backlash from the theater community. Writer Irakli Kakabadze sarcastically compared the move to the Soviet era and told them they might as well shoot actors and send them to Siberia. Art critic Gogi Glacharia says he sees this as a clear act of censorship, and the leadership canceled the play just to show loyalty to the ruling party. Finally, new article for Geopolitics titled Georgia, Venezuela in the New Scramble for Spheres of Influence. Nata Sabanadze breaks down the arrest of Nicolas Maduro and what it means for Georgia. The article discusses how the special operation against Maduro was seen in Georgia by both the ruling party and the opposition. It looks at what these events mean for small countries at a time when even Western powers no longer shy away from using raw force. Sabanadze says the Kotzebue used this shift to isolate the country, while the opposition hopes the U.S. will remove local autocrats next. However, she says Georgians cannot outsource their democracy. The U.S. now acts more like a predator than a protector, leaving small states to defend their own interests. Link to the article in English in the show notes. And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Nachamdis.